Impact from Organizing for Better Tomorrow. I hope everyone is hanging in there. There's not a lot to hang on to left at this point in the Trump administration, but we're we're all doing our best to try to get aggressive. I'll say this. We got a lot to say tonight about a lot of stuff. We got this mRNA study that came out. We got Novavax in Canada. We got a statement on BA.3.2 from Invivyd. Just a bunch of things, some activism, call to actions, interesting facts that came along. But I think that with Trump, the most interesting thing we're seeing right now is we're at the point of his presidency where the rats start jumping off the ship.
Yep. The ship is going down.
The ship is going down. And you can look no further than Melania's speech today. Where Melania, that was today, right? That wasn't like where she said that, responded to the rumors about Epstein and Donald Trump getting introduced to her through him.
Mm-hmm.
It was weird. Am I alone in thinking that was kind of weird?
No, it was really weird. Actually, one of my patients had it on at their house when I was there. And I'm like, what the holy hell is this?
Very strange.
Yeah. She's not friends with him. She had nothing to do with any of it. Yeah, right.
Jeffrey who?
Right. Is that spelled with a G? Even though there's all those pictures of them together, right?
Yeah.
I think that this is, and we talked about some pre-call. I think that this is Melania. Her movie did really poorly. She has a very small fan base, and I think the information about the child who bit Donald Trump's little mushroom has been validated by a couple of different sources, and I think that with how he got his, I feel like surrender and losing the war isn't a strong enough phrase for how badly Trump has lost the war with Iran. He do we say cracked now instead of clapped, because he took the missile. I'm just saying, Iran is getting everything they want, and even the Democrats are like, "This is crazy. This is wow, guys, did you say we should keep bombing? What are you saying?" It's so weird how they're like, he went too far and gave him too much. He's like, he didn't have a choice. They're getting absolutely slapped around.
Doing nothing would have been a lot better status quo than what he did and what he opened up.
Right.
In this illegal war of aggression on Iran.
Right. I think we're also seeing, honestly, that tweet where he said the F word is having more fallout than him killing that school children in Iran. You know what I mean?
Because it was completely unhinged.
Yeah, and he's continued to be completely unhinged, going after Tucker Carlson. It's nothing like when someone says, no one's even talking about them, while literally talking about them. I feel like that is he wrote that while talking about them. Okay. I think there's more and more people talking about the 25th Amendment or the the fourth what's it called, the impeachment statute. I can't remember what it's called. People were saying it.
Section 4.
Right. Was it what's the actual numbers
for articles of impeachment?
Article 2, Section 4.
Yeah, Article 2.
Removing the whole cabinet.
Right.
Yeah.
Removing the whole cabinet.
Right, the whole cabinet removes everybody. Because if they Article 25 or whatever it's called, 25th Amendment, that's just him. Everyone stays. Vance moves up. They remove him. They do that. But if they do,
they have to agree on that too. They have to agree to do that.
Yeah, I don't think they have it. But if they do,
Wait, there's a way to remove the entire cabinet?
Yeah, when they impeach, it removes everybody.
Oh.
Yeah, because a new president gets appointed and he puts in a new cabinet. The cabinet serves at the will of the president.
There were articles of impeachment put forward. Yeah. I saw it written by Ralph Nader actually and Bruce Fein.
Right. And they go into some detail on all the different things, from ICE to Iran to a lot of other things, and it's just
killing people at sea.
Yeah,
there's all kinds.
That's the one I feel like Hegseth is in a lot of trouble. And the other advantage is, if you get Trump out this way, he can't write anyone their get out of jail free cards. Yeah, pardons. So like, no pardons, and like that whole talk about rats in a sinking ship. It's like they can't get away from it if the thing doesn't give them like the pardon to get away from it. Because that's the whole thing. They did all this illegal stuff under the context that they would get it all taken away at some point. And let's just say that did not occur. That could not occur. And I also think like people that are getting fired now, they're not going to get pardons, for all the stuff that they've done. So it's sort of, especially but with Hegseth specifically and the ICE people. The statute of limitations on murder is your life forever. There's no statute of limitations on murder. So like,
there isn't one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So all these people who are like, I get to be this guy and then go back to my normal civilian life are really going to be in for a rude awakening, especially with the censoring that's going on of UN people, where like their whole lives are being destroyed for standing up to Israel. Like I don't know if you guys have seen this, but like people can't get credit cards, they can't use any American businesses. Not censoring. There's another word for it.
Sanctions.
Sanctions. Thank you. So they're sanctioning individual people at the WHO, at the at the Brain No Worky, the UN. Thank you. What would I do without you guys? I just totally.
It was Francesca Albanese.
Right, there's a couple people now. There's not just her. There's a couple people now who are being sanctioned that they can't access bank accounts, credit cards.
The U.S.?
What's that? The U.S. Yeah.
The U.S. is sanctioning them. I see.
So like all U.S. businesses cannot work with them. So like Visa, MasterCard, those are all U.S. businesses. So like none of those, you can't get a credit card, you can't open a bank account, you can't. Like you can with there, but even then it becomes problematic because you're being sanctioned by sometimes your own country too. It's just, I just feel like there's this like they think they can do this to people and there won't be like reprisal. Some might call it accountability, but I think the most interesting thing, there's actually a couple of interesting things that are happening. They're just like absolute mess. Apparently they think we were right that they thought that Pam Bondi wouldn't have to go to Congress if they fired her. This is the kind of people we're dealing with, okay? They're
stupid.
It's so stupid. They're like, Attorney General Pam Bondi has to show up to congressional hearing. Well, she's not Attorney General Pam Bondi anymore. She's just Pam Bondi, so she doesn't have to come. And you're like, that's not how that works at all. You still have to. You still have to show up. I do think getting holding her in contempt is going to be tricky because the Republicans have to do it, but not impossible. So, not impossible. And then you have RFK, everyone's favorite car for a brainworm, is starting his own podcast. Which, I mean, he really has a voice built for silent movies. You know what I mean? I'm not sure a podcast is the right pathway for this, but I feel like he's living out every middle-aged man's dream of having a white man's dream of having a podcast, and again, that is speaking from experience. So, good for him, but it really shows that he's starting to try to build an audience, knowing he's not going to be there long. Like he needs to use the resources of the government to get his thing started, so that when he leaves the government, he can follow in the steps of Vinay Prasad and all that sort of stuff. I'm sure you'll be tuning in, right, Jesse?
Yeah, well, RFK he had a podcast years ago with
Ring of Fire with Mike
Papantonio, the attorney.
Papantonio, yeah, right.
Yeah. Which was actually some good information, and that was before. I don't know. He went down the road.
Brainworm? That was when he was an environmental attorney and was sane, and actually worked on one of our cases in my area.
Before he lived in the house full of mold that Chelsea Handler brought for him.
Yeah, it was before.
We had groundwater contamination from Raytheon.
Oh my God, he's going to build immunity if he keeps this up, right?
Yeah, you know that movie Blackwater, about the Forever Chemicals, Virginia, I think it is.
I think it was
the PFAS
West Virginia. Was that Mark Ruffalo? What something to do with that?
Mike Papantonio, his co-host on his former podcast Ring of Fire, was one of the attorneys in that case.
Yeah, he did a lot of toxic. He's done a lot of toxic tort work.
If you go to
he was our attorney for us too.
there's a map of PFAS. We really need to get the show up with the video so we can start showing people this stuff. But there's a map to track PFAS across the country, and Virginia specifically, there's like an Air Force base or Navy base or something like that where they do a lot of fire training. The PFAS is the most PFAS in the whole country. It's like the numbers are crazy, and it's because the foam that they use to put out jet fuel, which does in fact melt steel beams, by the way, is controversial statement of the week. It is just PFAS, and they've just been putting it down the drains. Like they don't have special disposal for it. Or at least, when they use it, it's just whatever. So, like, the area is super contaminated really, really badly, and there's all this horrible disease from it. So, and actually, this is actually a good point. So, if anyone is wondering, disease from PFAS in Virginia would be considered endemic because it is not infectious. But if it is infectious, it's a pandemic. So, when someone's trying to say, it's over, COVID is not endemic, they're implying or saying directly, but they probably don't realize it, that they're saying COVID is no longer infectious. And that's how we know that statement is wrong. A big distinction is, so like if you have like, we haven't had a bird flu pandemic, and yet bird flu is endemic in birds because it hasn't spread from human to human consistently, which would make it infectious to humans, which would make it a pandemic. There's a bird pandemic happening. That happened because it's infectious in birds, and it is endemic because of that process, but it is not a human pandemic because it's kind of like how we talk about ACE2. You put the little H in front of it for human ACE2, so you're because other mammals have ACE2 as well. So you're like just a little extra distinction. I feel like all these people saying this I can't believe they've been saying it so wrong for so long. It's kind of like insulting to everyone in my opinion because the difference is it infectious. So I feel like. This is kind of a little off subject, but we were talking about, is the pandemic over or whatever? And I feel like it is very important to say what the WHO did agree to. We made a video for this, which Jesse did great work on. Good job, Jesse, by the way. And it was covering the WHO statements on it. And did they, in fact, say that the pandemic is over?
They did not.
They did not say that.
They did not at all. They told us to not forget the lessons we've learned or dismantle the systems we built around the virus, because there was going to be a lot more. There's got to be a lot more cases and deaths and variants and all that horrible stuff.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were talking about COVID. I tuned you out. Could you say that again? No, I'm kidding. It's so true. And I feel like we have this thing where the emergency was lifted. And I feel like I realize there's a discrepancy between certain groups, and that some groups still want us to treat it like an emergency, even though the emergency was lifted, even though it is, in fact, in my opinion, still an emergency. But getting people to treat it like an emergency is really tricky. And I feel like I had this interesting, we're going to talk about this more on later shows, but I had this interesting, like, moment of awareness during pre-call where I was like, I just really became aware of how, I could see why our position of dealing with COVID as like a constant problem does fit more into the normalization conversation than the emergency conversation. And I'm going to think about that, and we're going to come up with a better solution, because I feel like things like long COVID and persistence are a real emergency, a greater emergency than acute COVID, even though acute COVID is causing persistence. But just because people who are not normally known to be like at risk are at very high risk of death. And I feel like we need to do more to protect those people, but at the same time, and not get fed into like propaganda, because like this BA.3.2 thing and everything that's been going on with this mRNA study, there's just so much like sensationalism going on. But then when you're trying to tell people like it's not as sensationalist as it sounds, but it's still very bad, but it's not like this is more bad, because when you get sensationalist about something, you're trying to make one variant worse than the other. But when you actually go through variant data, which we do not every pre-call, but I'd say once a week or so, I look at it more often, but there are tons and tons of variants spreading in all 50 states, causing all kinds of disease, causing all kinds of long COVID. And I feel like that should be treated more like an emergency, but at the same time, we need to like understand that there's a certain level of baseline that your risk is always at the maximum already. So if this new thing evolves, there's not more risk for you individually, the COVID conscious person taking all the precautions, who's gotten the Novavax and wears their mask and does that stuff. There's more risk to everyone else who isn't doing those things. And I feel like we just need to figure out how to communicate that a little better. We're going to work on that as a group to illustrate that, because I feel like that point gets lost with, it's just so much fake propaganda is coming out that's like, it's very hard not to sound like I consider this an emergency, when in reality there is an emergency, but we're not talking about the right emergency. It's like triage, right? Like, we're not triaging the problems properly. I don't know. Is that a good way to put it, Terry? Like, I feel like we're not taking like order of severity in a way, and I don't know.
No, not at all.
So, and you could say that both the people trying to normalize it and the COVID conscious people we're putting the thing, both groups are like, it's, I'm going to quote Biff, it would be a lot easier to say what the answer is if either group was right. You're gonna own that statement. Of all the brilliant things you've said, Biff, that's what we're gonna remember you for. By the way, if you haven't seen it, Biff has a really great post up right now, which you should go take a look at, about Novavax expansion in Canada. Biff, anything you want to say about that? Did you stick with us?
Yeah, I think it's great to see. We kind of had an idea it was coming, but it sounds like, because Sanofi has told us they've been working on it, but it sounds like now they've finally completed the transfer of the licensing agreement. So now they can finally come out and just say fully that they're going to be making it available in the fall. So it's great to see.
Yeah, I wonder what we were hung up with Novavax was the, and I'd like your opinion on this. This is something we didn't talk about. So they switched. The provinces are now covering the vaccine distribution instead of the whole country, and I feel like the deal Novavax had that required them to manufacture in the country was a deal they had with the federal, whatever they call the national government, whatever they call in Canada. But but now that it's splitting off to other provinces, it sort of it kind of removes that restriction and opens the gates for provinces to agree to take it outside of whatever deal that might have existed with the national government. Also, that was a deal with Novavax, not a deal with Sanofi, right? So that's another complication in this that might open doors. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I believe, and I could be wrong on this, but I believe procurement is still done through the federal government, and then provinces have to get their doses from that stockpile, or they were allowed before to go directly to Novavax and procure on their own. But the thing we were hearing is that Novavax was requiring a minimum order that was too large for any province to meet.
Right.
And then when it comes to the federal government, they were requiring that Novavax produced domestically, and then
which they couldn't do. That's just
right. That just wasn't going to happen. But then that's a requirement that sort of magically happens to go away when you get your product transferred to a
Sanofi, right?
Company that's worth $120 billion and is the largest vaccine manufacturer already in Canada. So it's just kind of opens so many doors that Novavax really wasn't able to access before.
I'm shocked to hear that greasing wheels is a necessary part of the process. I had no idea. Who would have thought?
I know, right?
So weird. So we're so that's exciting news.
Congratulations, Canada.
Right.
Congratulations.
Yeah, well, we'll see how easy they make accessing doses. We still have, them getting in there, still a lot of hurdles. We're still having trouble with, and I'm not sure who we need to contact about this. Maybe Sanofi, maybe CVS. But CVS keeps sending back doses early, like really early. Like they expire next month and they're sending them back already. Like it doesn't make any sense. It's almost like the BA.3.2 drama made it seem like our current vaccines were ineffective and they tried to pull them off the shelves or something. Someone needs to do something because it's absolute BS, because people are like timing their stuff, expecting it to be there until this date, and then it's not there when they need him, and that's just insulting to everyone involved. Not only is the company losing money, where people want to get more protection and you're inhibiting protection. That's the whole problem with Novavax the whole time. It's like there's all this fight about whether or not it has higher levels of protection or whether or not it has this or that, and all the people who are resistant to what happened are just trying to hide, for whatever reason, a higher level of protection. It really ticks me off, especially when you look at like the malaria vaccine and what a huge improvement it was. It was a multi-shot vaccine that created this amazing response that beat out the other vaccines by this huge margin. And we just like pretend like that doesn't happen when we're in these comparisons. It's mind-boggling. It's almost like they don't want people protected from this.
No, really?
I don't know. Yeah, Terry, what do you think? What does your cynical mind say?
My cynical mind says they don't want us to be protected because we're going to become chronically ill and be patients for life and buy lots of drugs.
Do they have good drugs? I hear they have the best drugs.
Oh, I've never seen anything like it.
They have all of the heroines. Sorry. That was a joke from a previous show, by the way, because we learned that heroin is a brand name for morphine. It's an actual owned by a major pharmaceutical company. It's like the Kleenex of morphine. Anyways. So we got two things coming up that I want to talk about. One is this 50% mRNA study, which actually does have some really interesting points, but the propaganda around it that's happening it's like every day new propaganda. They're withholding things. This stuff gets released in May, and they technically have already released in an MMRW data on the current vaccines, and technically, I am generally, as a pro-Novavax person, I don't think the mRNA vaccines are protective enough, and that's my personal theory, and I have a lot of data to support that, just so you talk about these windows. But the LPA1 vaccines actually taught us something really important about the immune system, and it has to do with memory responses. So this last mRNA vaccine did do better than the previous vaccine, but they're not withholding that. We knew that a couple months ago. And that's because of, we think, internally, our group, and there was a study on this too, that the memory response got updated. So the KB2 and LPA1 are so close to each other antigenically that it's essentially the same variant. And it was able to update people's memory responses, which mRNA had not been able to. Novavax does it with a single shot. It's fantastic. It's super cool. But mRNA's had trouble with it, and this time they were so close to each other that it gave this higher response. The problem is, though, you're talking about 3-4 months. You're not talking about, 6 months of this level of protection. And then you're back to the other problem of 50% protection from COVID, even at its best, right? This is the best here. It did its best. 50% protection from hospitalization is not what we sold people. It is not good enough to protect from long COVID. It is not good enough to protect from long-term outcomes. It is not good enough. What about the 50% of people that were hospitalized? You told them it wouldn't hospitalize them, and they're hospitalized. So, when you talk about 50-50 as, a thing, I find it really kind of disgraceful that they're, trying to say... and I think this is where the withholding argument comes from. They want to say that it's being withheld because the data is so good, with the implication that makes the data good. But the data is neither being withheld, nor is it good. So it's just this is how they manipulate the public, because you hate these guys so much, which is justified, I think, in every way imaginable. But they try to spin that into, well, see, they're hiding it because the 50% is so good, they didn't want you to know it's that good. And you're like, explain to me why that's good again. Because you gotta remember, they're using subjective terms when you're talking about objective protections. Is it protecting people's quality of life? Well, 50% of people were hospitalized. So no, it's not. It's not protecting people. That's it. I mean, here's the deal. They sell it like you have 50% protection, but you also have a 50% chance to not have protection. If you just look that. Right? Am I out there on this one?
Well, that's the other side of the 50%. I would think. But yeah,
so the 50% chance to win is a 50% chance to lose. What's the difference?
We should be shooting for better odds.
Right, exactly. And I feel like them being okay, we got COVID, it's solved. I feel like it's just an obscene to create more long COVID. And I feel like this is where the emergency is. It's not in the changing variants or whether a new variant thing. It's that we're not offering people or like standardizing a high level of response. We're standardizing a lower level of response. And it makes me very nervous because like measles and COVID have very similar long-term outcomes. Some will argue measles is more dramatic. Some will say COVID is more dramatic. I generally think that measles theoretically is a little worse. We haven't seen like a full measles infection, but we see horrible, horrible things with COVID happening in super high numbers. So like if your measles vaccine only kept you out of the hospital 50% of the time, would we say that's a good enough measles vaccine?
No way.
I can't see that why we would. That seems like two very directly opposing ideas. So I do feel like there's this move to try to get the public to accept less effective responses from vaccines that will equate to less protective in general, and then now you need more treatments. And it kind of goes back to that, who said it? Which bank said it? It was like Morgan Stanley or one of these big banks said is it really a good idea to eradicate disease?
Yeah, I think they said that in the context of the Hep C vaccine, which did.
We talk about that a lot. Yeah, it's sort of that. It's like,
yeah,
because it puts the company
bad
out of
business
business.
model. You actually got rid of the disease. That's not good.
Yeah, exactly. And so who's going to buy
It
your
was a
treatment?
bank?
Yeah,
It was a bank?
It was a bank that said that. Now I want to look.
Wow.
No, now I want to. I do not remember. It was a bank that said it, or like an investor group.
Yeah, that's like the long arm of capitalism looking out for itself.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing with like. That's the whole thing. That's all it does. You know, it self-perpetuates to make more profit, and then they work with the news and the press and influencers to sell you on ideas. And then they change what is known as like public. Like I guess it comes down to common. Man, I'm having trouble with words today. Where you're like common knowledge or common logic or common sense. Mm-hmm. There we go. You're looking at like, is it common sense? So there's a lot of things that we say. That like it's I don't know. It's just we need to eradicate these diseases, and that should be our goal. Our goal should be higher level of protections, and we're instead kind of convincing the public that lower levels of protection is normal, and then that leads to building the treatment market, and that's the whole problem. Mm-hmm. So yeah, yep. So it's definitely worth a thing. I can't remember who the group is, and I don't want to type while I'm trying to talk, so it's distracting. But
yeah, that's okay.
But I have it. I have it in like a draft article we were writing a while ago. Like I know I have the point because we were doing the big article series that I never finished. That it got into this concept a lot, where I showed a lot of evidence, like the whole what's it called? Where you need drugs, can't process sugars, the diabetes. These diabetes groups that sell the medicines got together and they have conferences, and they're talking about increasing their profit share by double in 15 years or 13 years or something like that. And you're like, so you've had diabetes treatments this whole time for the existence of diabetes treatment, and you're saying in the next 12 to 15 years you're going to double that volume of income. Are you going to be charging people more? No. So you anticipate there being twice as many people who need, or like some, you raise prices a little bit, and this huge increase of people who need diabetes medication. What makes you think they're going to need diabetes medication like that you're willing to tell investors who you will be fiscally liable, or not fiscally, just liable to in general? Like, who are you telling that to, and why are you telling that to them? And this is a real conversation that's happening in these spaces, because they know that COVID causes more diabetes, and they plan to have this huge increase of normalized diabetes or normalized infections, and they plan to make money, and they're openly talking about how they're going to make all this money on. They don't say like because COVID causes it, but like what new thing occurred that makes them think that's going to happen.
Right. Yeah, we should be trying to solve problems, not
Goldman Sachs.
Goldman Sachs.
Goldman Sachs is
of
curious
course.
as a sustainable business model. 2018.
2018.
That was like pretty recently, less than 10 years ago they were saying this stuff. So I would say me saying they have a business model to increase the volume of infectious disease and reducing the treatments that prevent it is not a fringe opinion. This is me as the people's strategist trying to explain to you what the corporate strategy is and how you can protect yourself from it. I really don't sell the people's strategist thing enough on how, like, I'm trying to give you, like, people are always surprised by the things I'm saying. And it sounds like such a fringe opinion. And you're like, yeah, because protecting people and warning you about scams is a fringe opinion. That hit, didn't it, Jesse? I know. You felt that. I felt that. You just the air escaped. Ooh, like you got punched. Ugh.
Mic drop.
I know, but it's real. It is a fringe position to be like, you know what? Maybe life has value. Maybe like human life matters. Just putting that out there. Yeah. Speaking of randomness, total randomness, I'm going to go to that Invivid thing in a second. But did you hear Sam Altman, speaking of human life has no value, Sam Altman is on a list to have his brain digitized, knowing that the process will kill him. And he believes that's the price for immortality. I don't know. I gotta double check this story.
Stupidest thing I've ever heard.
It's definitely on the list. I don't know, maybe the stupidest thing I ever heard, but it's pretty high up there.
Does he wait until he reaches a certain age to do this, or
I
is like?
I don't know. I don't know. I feel like we really changed as a society from like you not even being able to make jokes about, you know, which you shouldn't make jokes about suicide anyways, but people not even able to making jokes on suicide, to people saying, have you considered suicide? Like, it's changed from like, you can't even say it on the internet to the government being like, yeah, that sucks. Have you considered just, I don't know, killing yourself? We have these booths, kind of shut you up. And that's like, we got there so fast. Like, I wonder if there was anything going around that affects people's brains so that they have less empathy. Huh.
You think?
No, not anymore. Not anymore because of the COVID infections. What was that, Jesse?
I said Soylent Green.
Right.
People.
You don't even tell the rest of the joke. You just say those two words, and I'm like, oh boy. Oh.
They put on the nice music.
It's people.
Yep.
Oh my god. This is going great. So let's pivot a little bit on that because I will say this one thing about Sam Altman. The Missouri lawsuit is moving forward. So his sister brought up rape allegations and sexual assault from 3 to 12, and he the federal judge says, I can't do anything for you except help you move it to state court where they have more jurisdiction and there's no statute of limitations. And so they're moving the court case to Missouri, where I think it happened. I'm not 100% sure, but that case is moving forward. And then Mia Farrow's son, whose first name I'm forgetting, also Ronan Farrow, thank you, just did an expose on him. I don't know if any of you caught it. We didn't talk about it during pre-call because I don't plan to talk about Sam Altman, but I feel like there's a pressing need to talk about him. Between him and Thiel, you're like there's a combined antichrist. But basically, it's just every way you go with this guy, he seems like he's a psychopath who doesn't know what he's doing, and he's just another con artist. Like, I would be surprised if he doesn't end up going the way of, like, what was the woman who had the blood test for everything? The one blood test.
Elizabeth Holmes.
Elizabeth Holmes, thank you. I wouldn't be surprised he ends up going the way of Elizabeth Holmes for defrauding investors.
There's something about these, like, tech billionaires, like, being, like, sleeping on beds of money that makes them totally out there and weird.
Oh, did you see? There was the other one. There's that other
It has
guy.
nothing to do with the rape thing, but just his weird ideas, you know, like the stuff that comes out of his mouth.
There was one recently from the other one of these guys. I think they're all another PayPal mafia guy. The guy who's trying to live forever, and he was bragging about his body temperature being so low and how it was like so important that he was like freezing to death. Like,
Really?
Yeah, he was posting that his temperature was like 95 degrees or something like that. He had reduced it by like a huge amount, and everyone is just like, no, dude, like, yeah, that stuff does work, but not like sustained. You're like, He's doing it all wrong. The guy looks like he's aging in super speed. He's like,
He wanted to sustain a lower body temperature.
yeah, because it like reduces his metabolism and he'll age slower or something. It's so stupid. It reminded me of that TikToker who's like, I'm the 40-year-old who looks like he's 17, and he looks like a 40-year-old with a 17-year-old haircut. It's like the most memeable thing in history. But the guy doing this stuff always reminds me of that because he's always saying how young he looks, and he just looks like he's like, ugh, dude, you look terrible. You look terrible. And why are you talking about your son's erection, you freaking weirdo? I don't know if you remember that, but he was measuring his like with their watches. Oh my god, it's so gross.
No.
So gross. I need to talk about it some more. So actually, Jesse, do you have that video? So we were talking about BA32. I'm going to make those awkward pivot on the planet. So BA32 is it was not bad. It's getting a lot of sensationalism, and I want to be able to talk about this without sounding like I'm minimizing. So Invivid is going to do it for you, and they gave a speech. Was that today, Biff? What was that from?
Yes, that was today.
Okay.
They held a webcast to talk about updates on their trial for VYD 2311.
The new replacement for not replacement, but to go like Pemgarda. They also make Pemgarda,
Right?
And so they're using it, and so having BA32 and whether or not so Jesse, you want to play the clip?
I know many of you have questions about the current COVID variant landscape, including the recent sensationalized BA.3.2.2 or so-called cicada variant. I hope a few observations answer most of your questions. First, we've been watching this variant for well over a year now. It is not in any way new, and in virologic terms could even be described as ancient. Parent spike protein on this lineage arose from the combination of Omicron BA.1 and BA.2, which, as you may remember, began circulating in late 2021 and early 2022, respectively. And in the case of Omicron BA.1, generated an overwhelmingly global burden of infections. BA.3.2.2 and related subvariants have periodically arisen in certain geographies when there are a few fitter viruses competing for transmission, akin to a sandbar you can only see at low tide. It is a virus that is not particularly fit, and some people see the structural configuration of its RBD as disadvantaged for ACE2 receptor access. We would tend to agree with that. We do not see this virus as driving a particular wave of COVID. We see it as unlikely to achieve dominance for any particularly meaningful quantum of time, and would anticipate if it comes outcompeted by fitter viruses that have easier access to the ACE2 receptor. There are some interesting hypotheses for whether this virus preferentially infects children and why, but those in our view are speculative at this time and sit beyond the scope of this call. Otherwise, this virus is only distinguished by what it may be teaching us about virus evolution and structural diversity. Specifically, as a very old set of spike protein mutations that are able to have some limited success currently as recycled rather than brand new structural space, it is tempting to wonder if we are beginning to see some boundary to the seemingly endless variations SARS-CoV-2 has demonstrated thus far.
There we go.
Yeah, I got a mixed statement about his end statement because I feel like at the end he gets into he goes a little too far into are we seeing the limits of it? But I feel like it's worth asking. You know what I mean? Like I do feel like with JN1 is showing us that it can like create so many subvariants that it really is dominating the field. But it's just going to take the only two consistent things we've known about SARS-CoV-2 variants. So we see these mutational shifts, you see all these letters and numbers and genes and codes and all sort of stuff, and there just hasn't been anything consistent other than if it has immune evasion, it has high reinfection risk but lower disease risk, and if it is more able to bind with H2 more easily, it has higher infection rates and probably more disease. Those are the things. So specifically, BA.3.2 neither has the higher infection risk. It actually has a reduced infection risk because it doesn't bind to H2 as well. HH2, sorry. but at the same time, it doesn't have the like spin-off of creating hundreds and hundreds of variants at a super fast rate because of the immune evasion aspect of it prioritizing. So you're into the situation where however, that being said, there is, I think, the evidence supporting it being more severe in children is very fair to be concerned about, and I feel like you're still talking about a very low prevalence. You're still talking about a very low, but it doesn't matter, because when is it going to get more feet and spread more in kids and cause more severe disease in children? And I think a lot of it has to do with a combination of vaccine rates, and because the vaccines are generally more effective in children. Some will argue they have lower responses, but they just do better when they're vaccinated in general. And then like not a lot of kids were exposed to these early variants. Like there are kids who have been born in the 3-year, 4-year range who like BA3 was already gone by the time they were born, and they didn't get exposed to those variants because we're still and people will argue we exposed kids to all these variants. Yes, we did, but in different volumes. So you're seeing this really low volume. So I'd really love to see, and we don't do this work, but I would love to see individual case studies on the kids who were hospitalized, where these reports came from, and try to figure out like what their history is, because we do that with measles and we do that with other things where we figure out what their vaccine history is and then put that. And we are seeing an increase in vaccine people who are vaccinated having measles cases, because if you're like dealing with somebody with a high viral load, it can still get through. But it's we're talking like 10%. It went from like 2% to 10%, so it's still super low.
Being vaccinated against measles and then getting measles.
Yeah, you can still get measles and you can still be hospitalized.
Right.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. It's just you need to have a really high exposure dose. So like parents who have kids who have measles and they're trying to, they think the vaccine will totally protect them, like, and you're just sucking down measles virus, like it can overwhelm your antibodies, because you're talking about it's the same reason COVID can do it in some, as it does, because the volume of virons, like in fact the amount of virus you're putting out when you're infected with this is really insane. That's why it's really good. I mean, if you're listening to this and somehow have not gotten your kids vaccinated for measles, just
probably a good idea.
Oh my god, I don't even know. It's just so many things. Like the full vaccine series, like we got to go take our kids to finish their series because one of them just had a birthday. But like, actually, they both just had birthdays. But like you're it's just I don't even understand how people can be like not necessary. You know what? Actually, I got this. Have you seen? This is unrelated and yet related. Have you seen the people trying to argue that Artemis 2 did not go to the moon?
Oh no. There's already conspiracy theories about this.
You know how you were like, "Oh, this is so great! Finally, people will believe we went to the moon."
Think again.
Not quite. Not quite. No, not quite.
It was done on a soundstage. Look at it.
Oh, everything is AI now.
Oh, okay.
Which, I mean, honestly, they like everything is AI except for this dancing kitten. You know what I mean? They're like,
That's real.
Like they think everything is AI.
But have you seen?
Whoa, John.
Sorry, hey, it's John. Have you seen some of those images that they're laughing at, where it's like the flat Earth, but there's like the side of the flat Earth disc, and there's like goats on the side? But it's like they're making these like animals looking like they're. It's just a joke based on the
I would just say,
Artemis.
I would just say in general, we're just seeing how people don't want to like you even when you do the thing in front of them, it is not enough to reshape their perception of reality. Like they're not able. Like, do you really think? And it's so fun. I don't know. At this point, I don't know if it's satire, but I keep getting these videos of like a woman holding a big jar of like yellowish milk, so it's like full of all that pus we were talking about. Recall, and they're just like with their raw milk talking about how Artemis is all being faked and you guys have to be stupid to actually believe that. And they're trying to take all these images of like how the moon is like oblong shaped from like one way they shot it. Like they're trying to like jump on everything. And And don't forget, there's a woman and a black man in space too, so there's extra reason for these. There's like a direct overlap between not believing this stuff and being a bigot. I'm not sure what that's about, but I'm sure it's related. So it's just extra reason. But speaking of Artemis, actually, fantastic moment. So President Trump, for now, called, or I should say President for now Trump, called the astronauts to say how proud he was of them. By the way, the same day he's pushing to get NASA funding cut significantly. And so they had a mic in front of them, and nobody would pick up the mic to say thank you.
No. So they were remote. They were somewhere else.
No, they're on the Artemis ship, floating in
Right.
zero G. And
Okay.
Trump calls them to be like, "We're so proud of you," whatever, and they all just sat there silently.
And nobody wanted to get on the horn.
Nobody would say anything to him for an entire minute. They forced him until he started talking again.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and they're like playing with the microphone because they're trying to make it like balance right because they're in zero G, and it's just like, oh man, that's
They did that old Pee Wee Herman joke. They were like, "Can't
It's
hear you. What? It's
a-
cutting out, huh?"
way worse than that. They just stared directly at the camera with the mic floating in there, being like, "Yeah, cool."
They just let him hang.
Yeah, just let them hang there. It's just like, oh my goodness, So we do have a couple of we do have a kind of a weird call to action coming up. I want to try something that I've never been able to try to do, but I feel like it should happen. We've been trying to here at Organize for Better Tomorrow try to get the COVID vaccine meetings to happen earlier, so that we can release new COVID vaccines in time for the school year, so that people want to get their kids vaccinated. It will cut down on disease, especially if we switch to Novavax, but even mRNA will cut down on disease in these groups, and hopefully it'll spread a little less. It's not enough, but it's better than what we're doing right now. And we do need clean air in schools. We need all these things. We need all these steps. Don't get me wrong. This don't take away from that. It will actually, all these things will work better together if they're done properly, like the Swiss cheese theory in the first place. But we really need the WHO to move their meeting in order for the federal government in America to move their meeting too, because it's like there's not enough time. So everyone meets in May, and then from there it's very hard to push the vaccines out earlier. But it doesn't make a lot of sense because we have the flu meeting first, and flu is a winter seasonal. We get flu year round. Flu and COVID are year round. They're both year round. But specifically, flu benefits and RSV benefit from cold weather. The cold weather makes your immune system less effective, so does COVID. But it makes your immune system less effective, so you're more likely to see an infection. And there is something I'm still trying to learn about this a little bit more. But there's some sort of preferential infection risk from flu versus COVID. Like you could have co-infections, but you're more likely to have flu than COVID. I don't understand it. I don't. I'm not afraid to say when something's beyond me. And we're going to learn about it and figure it all out and explain it to you as the process goes on. But there's some sort of preferential. So, like, when you have a lot of flu, you're going to have less COVID. Don't know why. Don't know what's going on there. But that seems to be the deal. That doesn't mean COVID's gone away. We are at, like, the lowest COVID wastewater in, like, a really long time. But it's hard to tell if that's a monitoring issue or, like, maybe these variants don't. Like, we've had variants. Like, I always thought maybe the BA2 spike, the giant spike we had with Omicron, was because you were more likely to push out wastewater, like, poop it out. That's where wastewater comes from. So I always thought maybe that was a factor. Not to say there wasn't an enormous amount of COVID because they told everyone to take their masks off. I just have always wondered because different variants have slightly different responses or prioritize slightly different things. And so it seemed like that was always a thing. So we could be having the opposite of that, where variants just don't produce as much wastewater right now. It doesn't mean there's less necessarily, but there is lower COVID levels than usual, which means I expect a new wave to start right away. It looks like NB181 has been picking up finally. But, moving the COVID meeting with the WHO, it makes more sense for the WHO meeting for COVID to happen earlier, and then the flu meeting to happen a little later, because the flu needs 6 months for the egg-based vaccines, right? That's 6 months for the egg-based vaccine, Biff, to roll out. We've talked about this a lot.
Right. That sounds about right. I'm not sure on the exact timeline. I just know it's much longer than for either of the manufacturers for COVID vaccines.
Right. And so you're looking at if we have flipped those meetings around, or even have them closer to each other, like maybe at the same time or something like that. Flu vaccine is a lot more complicated than the COVID vaccine, in my opinion. And I do feel like the COVID vaccine, you do need to like be prepared to flip it every 6 months, theoretically, which could happen. These manufacturers can do it. Novavax, you just get an additional shot. mRNA, their whole shtick was they could produce the vaccines more quickly. So like we really want them to meet on a 6-month schedule, but we want that schedule to align with the release of COVID vaccines for the beginning of the school year. So they'd get released at like the beginning of August. And that might seem like, oh my God, Don, that's so early. But we always have a summer wave. We always have some sort of problem with that. Like you could even argue that we should be releasing it at like the start of summer, but kids would be less protected by the time they go to school because that immunity window would be closed. So you're better off trying to pivot it towards protection before you go to school and reducing transmission from the school year in general, which will make the winter season, and then the flu vaccines can roll out when your actual seasonal concern is necessary, and that would be a better way to do it. So we really need to, we're going to try to figure out how to petition the World Health Organization in order to make that move.
Variant selection earlier.
Yeah, make that move. Switch the meetings around or change it however they want. But the timing right now doesn't make sense for how the viruses are actually behaving.
Because they guide the conversation for VRBPAC here at
right,
FDA.
Right, yeah. And they should. They should. I feel like, especially with everything going on with the HHS. But I do think that it's like with the flu vaccines, we just do what the WHO says. It's like flu vaccines are so incredibly hard to pick because you're picking 3 different variants, and they're like it's so hard. It's so much harder than COVID variants. Yeah, and it's surprising how little we still know about influenza variants. Like we say, people who say we know all this about COVID variants after just a couple of years. Like we've had flu this whole time. We don't know. I think the technical phrase is jack shit. We don't know jack shit about these variants, and it's disappointing. But hopefully there's some better flu vaccines with more range coming up. And there was a study that the one of the problems that vaccines have that we talk a lot about is back to updating the memory response. You were saying the flu block vaccine was updating people's memory responses? Was that what that was, Biff?
Yeah, that's right. And that's Sanofi's recombinant vaccine. So
we're out
same
here.
as Novavax, where, it's different from the other cell-based vaccine, which is Flucelvax and the egg vaccines, in that it doesn't require adaptation. So it more closely matches circulating flu strains, and it has higher antigen. Every one of the 3 flu strains that we target in the trivalent vaccine, the standard dose flu vaccines have 15 micrograms of antigen, and this one has 45 grams instead.
Wow, that's micrograms, right?
Right.
Yeah. Wow. That's a lot.
What did you mean by adaptation? I didn't know.
Biff?
Right. So yeah. So in the traditional flu vaccines that are egg-based, when they're grown in eggs, it has to go through slight adaptations to be able to grow in the egg. So when that happens, we know that it makes the end product, the antigen that's produced, it ends up being a little bit different than what we actually see circulating in humans. So that's one of the leading theories as for why Flublok and the other cell-based vaccine offer a bit better protection than the traditional egg-based shots.
Because it's closer, the variant is closer because of the egg-based stuff. It comes out a little askew, and so
it does something weird when it's adapting to the protein or something.
Right,
like,
yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Right.
Huh.
I'll be honest with everybody. Flu vaccine is not my like. The whole egg-based vaccine just seems like we should be moving away from that in general. It just seems like it's not a good way to really get vaccines made. It's worked though. It's worked thus far. It's good. It did its thing. We'll probably still use it for a while. But I do think that like with the cell-based vaccines and the new protein-based vaccines, and you're just kind of like, we really should consider that this is like on its way out in a certain, I feel like it should be a conversation. And of course, we just don't want RFK Jr. to have that conversation, or else everyone will denounce a actual reasonable change, which he wouldn't do because it's reasonable. So don't worry, you can listen to him on his podcast.
Right.
Yeah. So
to bring it full circle.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. I was just thinking, I would really love the feeling of sandpaper in my ear. Is that a thing that we can do? Just grinding.
You made a good point earlier that I don't know if you made on here, which is that like he's trying to gather some like street cred on the way out the door.
Yeah. This is definitely sinking ship material. Like him being like, "Oh, I should make a podcast before this is all over." He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
Reinvigorate the fan base.
Yeah, exactly. He's got this reach because he can use the government reach to reach the most people. So like, why wouldn't you?
He's gonna have a cool set, and I saw he's got a Shure SV7 mic. The nice mic.
Right.
Yeah, that's nice.
We don't got Shure money around here. Yeah, I think I have what is this? This is just a blue. Could be worse. Still better than my earphones. Anyways, I got two more things on my list that we haven't talked about. I got long COVID. I wrote this thing about treating long COVID. I kind of wanted to read to everybody because I feel like philosophically it's going to become a bigger piece that I'm going to do. Because if you don't know, I wrote this long COVID article before we had the group, before the thing, to meet everybody. I wrote this long COVID article, and it was the first article explaining the parameters of how long COVID functions. Nothing existed at that point. We had people talking online, but nobody had taken all the citations and all the things and put them together and really explained it. I feel like I did. It did miss a couple things that we didn't know about, which ironically I missed in the write-up, and I had to come back and add a second comment. I thought that was funny. I was like, oh, the thing I forgot in the first place because we didn't know yet. I totally didn't put here. And then the DNC vote for condemning AIPAC, I'm a little confused still about what the actual, which I should probably work out before I get on the call. But Donna, you want to check that out? Actually, could you look that up for a second? Someone look that up while I'm going on about this long COVID treatment thing, because I want to. A lot of people listen to us who have long COVID, and we talk about Novavax for long COVID, but I work really hard. I spend a lot more time than I want to admit trying to figure out what the hell is going on with all this data, because I wrote this big thing back in the day. It was 2022, but I wrote it in 2021. We're explaining long COVID. We had figured out back then, we got Novavax approved for additional long COVID use in 2023. It feels like forever ago. And you always forget it's 3 years, but there'll be a fourth presentation this year, even though we've done 3 other ones too. But I said you got 3 real ways to look at treating long COVID. And if anyone from the group wants to comment on any of this as I'm going, feel free. So number 1, you have broken feedback loops, which I want to say Freeze, our former co-host, still a member of our staff, was the person who really turned me on to this idea, because when you're talking about CNS dysfunction, you're talking about these things called feedback loops. So there's systems that are meant to self-perpetuate, but the process gets broken somewhere. We call this dysfunction. Each part of each feedback loop is treated differently, and there are a lot of them. This shows up as a ton of different diseases, especially ME/CFS or other CNS-related diseases. We're really learning that ME/CFS is something to do with the CNS. And I only say something to do right now because I do have a more complex theory, but it is CNS related because the drugs who help people recover are CNS related. So it's sort of like one of these, and it doesn't. While treating persistence, sometimes the ME/CFS will respond. It is less likely to, and you have this autoimmunity issue. Now, something that people don't know about is there's something called CNS-mediated autoimmunity. So your CNS gets dysfunctional, and it creates types of autoimmunity. And I believe, and I'm still researching this, there's a correlation between that, the ME/CFS autoimmunity, and the CNS-related disease, the CNS-mediated thing. And then you also, in addition to that, you have the mitochondrial dysfunction, but your CNS oversees and stabilizes your mitochondria. So you're into this sort of thing where it all leads back to the central nervous system. And I have a point in here at the very, very end, but it's relevant to this, is that we're going to have to learn how to treat herpes better. Because I think that I talk to a lot of people privately, and everyone's, I'm very protective. share a case study unless they see it publicly. Like if someone sends me a message, I never talk about it. Maybe I'll talk about the concept, but it's like I have my own HIPAA, where I'm like, people should be protected and they have the right to privacy. But I have so many people who come to me and talk about their symptoms, and that herpes, which we think of through EBV, or is it cytomegalovirus or megalocytovirus? I always confuse them because one's fish and one is herpes for humans. But basically, whichever one is, that comes up, that pops up a lot on people's tests. You see that a lot. So I feel like it's very hard to talk about ME/CFS without talking about herpes. And I feel like that is adding... I do not want people with ME/CFS to get labeled as like, oh, well, that's just, blah, blah, blah. It's more complicated than that. And unfortunately, you don't... Like, people will try to label that as a sexually transmitted disease. Oh, you made bad decisions. But a lot of that can be latent viruses. And even if they did make bad decisions, like, they're not bad decisions. Stop being a prick. Like, this shit just happens. It's part of life. We should just deal with it and help these people and not try to victimize them, or like, it just gets so ugly. And I really want to avoid that. So I don't know. I don't really talk about this a ton. It's better for these like calls where like fewer people listen, but it's still something we need to figure out. So I have number 2. That was number 1. Number 2, I go persistence that is causing constant damage by both infecting cells and creating syncytia formations, but also releasing the organic compounds, which we call cytokines, within the cell. So I said that funny, but basically it releases the organic compounds within the cells. We call these cytokines, and they can be cytotoxic to our other cells. Shouldn't have said which. They are. It's not a maybe. They are cytotoxic. I go, this is tough because your immune system is the best tool to fight this, but the immune response has to match the active variant, which is tricky with variants continuing to mutate in the host. So we have to artificially boost immune systems, e.g. with antiviral infusions or the like, and it needs to be functional to match the persistent variant or get close enough. And I go, this is why tracking variants in your body is more important than getting a viral count, and will be easier to do via targeted biopsy or scanning. So basically you do a scan, you see where the COVID damage is still occurring, do a biopsy of that area, find the COVID in it, test for that variant, treat you with antibodies for that variant, essentially. It might sound simple. There is nothing simple about it. But we can do all those things, which is different than people who want viral load tests, which we can't do because you would still be extrapolating towards the whole body, which is just not something that works out that well. So 3, or you have permanent damage caused by the virus that can only heal over time, but will likely worsen if the persistence is not addressed as a priority. Back to me talking about the emergency. Persistence is an emergency, since it's constantly causing further damage. This can look like someone getting a disease much younger than they normally would, or advancing faster, as this process ages your body. And when you add in the immune dysfunction, diseases like cancer can flourish without opposition. Now, this is all in reference to talking about Akiko Iwasaki's immune suppressor. Basically, it's a nasal spray that suppresses cytokines, and it allowed people to recover more quickly because the cytokines being released from infected cells make it harder for your body to be functional. And so any sort of suppression that you can do will help some people, not all people. There is no, and I want to say this because someone said something to me about Novavax helping people with long COVID. We did have another long COVID recovery from Novavax, and I'm not sure they had ME/CFS. They probably had like fatigue and other symptoms, more persistence related. And again, ME/CFS can be persistence, but it can also not be persistence. And also treating the CNS is super tricky. So it's, the whole thing is super dicey. But they're criticizing me kind of by being like, well, it's not a universal solution. And I just want to make it really clear, there will be no universal solution for this. Even if we talk about infusion antivirals, like different people are going to have different variants and they're going to need different treatments. That's why I really like what companies like Invivyd are doing, because they're talking about making like more custom antibodies for people, and that's what this is going to take. And we need to do this really badly. And like some people will respond, they're not that mutant variant. They got normalish variants in the thing. They haven't mutated that far. That can happen, especially with the JN1 variants. We're seeing a lot of that. They do mutate, but they're kind of close to each other. So, hopefully through all this JN1 stuff, we're actually seeing less persistence, but I don't know. Probably not. That could be part of the wastewater data too, because when we're looking at wastewater persistence in the gut can be a major factor. So we could have less persistence right now. I don't know. We need to investigate this stuff, but I think that generally speaking, when we hear people talk about their symptoms, you see like we just had the guy Brendan, whatever, Nicholas Brendan died in his sleep. Kind of young. He did kind of have like ongoing. My understanding, my wife told me at least, the ongoing drug problems. But the guy from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, there's been a lot of people we've seen that are very young, 30s or 40s, with like really advanced cancers and this sort of stuff. And this is what we expect to see from long COVID now. Like long COVID doesn't look like ME/CFS. Long COVID looks like cancer in your 30s, or ALS that kills you in a year, or any number of Alzheimer's as a child. I shouldn't laugh, but it's just so ridiculous. I'll never forget the day we were talking about. We planned this ad campaign that we still would love to do about called "Learning to Live with COVID," but it satirizes and goes really dark, extreme with what that would look like. Because you can't do it. We can't do it. We have to eradicate COVID. We have to, or at least we have to eradicate COVID. Like at the end of the day, because it's always going to mutate. It's always going to do this thing. And so we put this thing together, and we're in the middle of trying to think of, like, what is the most absurd thing we can say? And that day, a infographic came out talking about how to spot strokes in children.
Yeah. Not something you see every day. Or at least not something you used to see every day.
Yeah, now it sounds like we're seeing a lot more of it, maybe even every day. If you need to learn how to get signs of your child having a stroke, I would say that our COVID response might not be working. Right? Like, I mean, if we're like, it's so damaging that like 1 in 3 kids are diabetic or pre-diabetic, and like we're seeing like Alzheimer's pop up in children, and now they're having strokes and like heart attacks as teenagers, and you're like, I don't think this is working, guys. And then you have the same people who say that Artemis 2 isn't going around the moon saying the vaccines are causing it. And while the vaccines are super problematic, not like that. Not like that. Whenever someone says the vaccine gave them myocarditis, I'm always like, okay, I'm going to check your whole search history. Because usually it's just, they've never talked about vaccines before. They're just like, because like we've seen people who have gotten hurt by vaccines, especially people with autoimmune diseases. Like if you have an autoimmune disease, you can become vaccine intolerant. You can have. This is why we need. This is one of the reasons we need. High protection levels and herd immunity, is because herd immunity doesn't protect the person who got vaccinated. The herd immunity protects the person who can't get vaccinated. So we have this huge population of people who are vaccine intolerant now. So if they get any vaccine, they could have severe autoimmune issues, especially when you have PEM mixed in, which PEM seems to be central nervous system mitochondrial dysfunction, which is like,
yeah. You were talking before about herpes.
I want to say one thing really fast. I don't talk enough about how much I sympathize with these people and what they're going through. I don't talk about enough because I don't want to make them seem like children or victims, or like, but they are kind of victims, not children. So sort of like, I don't talk enough about how much time I spend sympathizing with what these people are going through, and how many people I talk to every day who are going through it. Like every day, not once a week, every day. I'm talking to someone on Reddit or whatever. I'm reading some story. It's every day, multiple times a day. How many people are affected by this? Some people are like, COVID is over, we don't need whatever. You're just like, guys, you're not, like, why are we talking about, like, we're talking about the wrong things. We're misprioritizing where we should be putting our emergency focus. And that's what the powers that be want. That's why the things get covered in the press, because they fit into these narratives. Like, naming the variants stupid, cutesy names is a minimizing tool. So, like, of course, the people who minimize COVID love supporting, TRG and his little crew of people who are always wrong in minimizing, because that's what it's for. I don't understand how people can miss that. I think it's just like, you gotta like measure people by their actions, not their words. Like, people tell you what they want to hear all the time. You gotta measure them by what they actually do. And not a lot of doing, so I guess it is kind of hard to measure people by that. And posting is not doing. Posting on the internet and Twitter, and that is not the same as doing. Just because you like it doesn't make it like good. Speaking of not liking it and not being good, did anyone get a chance to look up the language on this DNC vote really fast? I meant to look it up before pre-call, but
Yeah, it's apparently the DNC's resolution committee voted down a proposed resolution that specifically criticized dark money influenced by APAC in primaries. Instead, they passed a broader resolution opposing dark money in general without naming any specific group. And there were two related.
Go ahead.
Two related resolutions on Palestinian statehood and conditioning aid to Israel were deferred to a working group.
Okay.
That could be a lot worse than I thought it was.
Yeah.
That could be a lot worse, because technically they could have shut down the thing and not sent it to a working group. So at least a working group could come back with something, whether or not it's acknowledged or not. But, like, all dark money is a problem, and I do feel like we should call it APAC for what it's doing in primaries, specifically for what it's saying, but being willing to amend it. Because here's the thing. Even though they're not explicitly calling out APAC, they are calling out APAC. If they're saying all dark money, then that's APAC too.
But aren't they not considering APAC specifically dark money?
I don't think there's an exclusion there, is there? They just made it more inclusive, right? They made it inclusive. First off, the DNC does. Well, so check this out. So the DNC does not handle congressional elections. There's a big confusion about how the party operates. The DNC is the Democratic National Committee. They are the nominating body for president of the party. The DNC is made up of what we call automatic delegates, and they're party leadership from all the various states, and then a small body of people who are nominated by the current chair, right? So the current chair picks, like, I don't know, it's like 30 or 40 people. It doesn't have to be the max number, but there is a cap. They're usually not good people, and they can sway votes, but it's harder because there's not that many of them. But the state party chairs, vice chairs, and then they each have a small body of appointed or voted, depending on the state and how their laws, how their charter is set up. So it's a little different, but they're state body leadership. So it's all the state leaders. This is why I say the Green Party isn't a real party, because they don't have state party leadership that can come together to have a meeting to do this stuff. They do conventions, but then the leadership, the national leadership, just picks whoever they want. It's really shady. And I'm not just talking trash. That actually happens. They had one time, like, the 7th runner-up for the Green Party be the candidate just because the guy who's in charge of everything. He pulled, like, what was George Bush? Dick Cheney. When Dick Cheney was like, oh, you want me to find the vice president? I found him. It's me. Which was the most, like, God, the guy had balls on his chin, like, it was, like, I don't even know what else to say about that, but not speaking anything good about the guy. He went through, like, you can't say he had no heart, though, because he had, like, 5 of them. Oh, man. So the DNC, though, the thing is, like, I need people to understand, like, the idea of taking over the party, which was, by the way, that whole Bernie taking over the party thing, I went to Our Revolution and got Bernie's team on board with that. Like, we were pushing take over the party as the next big grassroots move. And so I went to Bernie's people, and that's how we got Bernie to say, hey, we're forming the Democratic Party, or whatever he said. Was, you know, that didn't start from Bernie. That started from me going to Bernie. And I know people will be all like, oh, stop saying you did everything. Someone said to me the other day, they're like, oh, yeah, you did it. You mean you were part of a group or on a team? And I'm like, no, dude, it was my idea. I planned it. I did it basically on my own. Like, I had people, but, like, I was driving around the country to go to these people and build relationships and get them to listen and make these moves. So, like, it wasn't a big group of people. The delegates was a big group of people. That was a lot of people. It took a huge operation to get done. But the after that, no, absolutely not. I had meetings with people, and I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And sometimes people were like, you shouldn't do it that way. Like, Medicare for All should have been Medicaid for All. But Medicaid for All just doesn't roll off the tongue the same way. It just, I don't know. And there wasn't a previous Medicaid for All movement, and people would have been like, you know, flimsy about it. But anyways, Medicaid's a better program. But taking over the party is a real thing, because we took over like 3 or 4 states during the 2016 convention. We could have taken over more if people hadn't become so disillusioned about it all and fed into neoliberal propaganda. But there is, like, if you don't like what you're seeing, you know, the party and all these groups are ruled by the people who show up. So if you show up, you can change policy. Even if it's just COVID policy, you want better COVID policy, show up. Whether it's your state or primary. And I do feel like what is happening with DSA in New York and trying to get them to be COVID conscious is exactly how not to do it. Like, yeah, harassing people online is kind of funny sometimes when they're being jerks, but you're just being a jerk too, as speaking from experience. And so it doesn't really help, right? Because I thought you'd like that, Jess. You're like, yeah, that sounds like you. So you can't, it's not the right way to do. You're better off just showing up with your mask, showing up with your air filter, showing up with your things, setting up a thing, giving people an option, having some papers to explain the risk. But just wearing a mask and hiding in the back of the room is not the way to do it. We need to educate people and set up booths and set up this, give people the option. Because I feel like if you want to normalize something, you just have to make it more of a commonality, not something that it requires all these extra steps, which I think is where a lot of the COVID conscious community goes wrong. Because back to the idea, they want people to treat it like an emergency still, but the emergency is gone. And if we're going to talk to people, we have to say it from a tone that normalizes that COVID is here, but that we need to protect ourselves from it. We can't just ignore it. And right now the consensus is well, I would just prefer not to think about it. And you're like, that's a terrible plan. And also, we got RSV, we got influenza, we got all these different bugs going around. There's a lot of reasons for people to increase airborne protections, because the big thing I think no one really talks about is that the longer these infections go on, the more mutations they gain, and we're really letting the genie out of the bottle on this. You can't get that. You can't get it back in. Once it's out and it starts singing its stupid song like in Aladdin, you can't stop it. It's going to make a lot of noise, and that's going to be a permanent problem. It's going to affect how vaccines work. It's going to affect how treatments work. It's going to affect basically how everything works. And we're just now starting to see that. And I feel like that's the big long-term risk from COVID, and the immune dysfunction isn't just people dying, but the people who survive are going to be in a landscape of more aggressive pathogens and weaker immune systems. So it just seems like, we talk a lot about climate change, and I feel like we should talk more about the very delicate microbial balance that we were living in, and what a privilege it was to be there for so long. We're really in a different world, and it's not a better one, as shown by literally every event or the news or anything. And that's why I don't find myself panicking when more bad things happen, because it's kind of well, let's go find out what bad thing happened today. And, I hope for a better world or a better tomorrow. But I don't know, hasn't happened yet. Pam Bondi getting fired was kind of nice. That was kind of a high point in the whole the whole process. Trump getting his absolute did you see the most recent Lego video from Iran?
I saw a bunch of them, but I'm not sure which one.
Talk about winning the propaganda war. I realized something, though, and we're going to kind of go out on this note. I realized something. We were talking about Lego and how Lego, and we actually looked it up, Lego has not condemned or issued any type of please stop doing this, because they can't do a cease and desist to Iran. It's not America where that's how the law works. I don't know how the law works for copyright in Iran, actually.
And it's a group, actually. It's some separate group that's not really coming from the country. It's called Explosive Entertainment or something like that.
I don't know the specifics. It seems like it's coming from them, but this is an ever developing story.
Go ahead.
Yeah. But the point is that Lego's from Denmark, who's part of Greenland. So you're well, no wonder they're screw this dude.
There's anti-Trump tie-in here.
Yeah, there's an anti-Trump tie-in between Iran and Denmark that I did not see coming because of Greenland. And I'm
didn't know that.
He is bringing the world together just against him. Which is
probably
probably bad for us. Which is back to why we need to get him impeached and get him out and get these things going. And people are we already tried impeaching him. It was so hard. You're yeah. Third time's a charm, folks. Third time's a charm. All right.
He's only gotten worse. He's only gotten worse and done more horrible things, crimes against humanity and war crimes.
And the social media posts just keep getting longer and more unhinged. I'm not sure, maybe that whole thing about Easter was just trying to set the bar so low so everything else didn't seem as bad, but I don't know. Do we mention him
Yeah.
threatening the Vatican? I don't think we mentioned him threatening the Vatican. Like,
No, we
that's-
didn't talk about
Oh my
any of the-
god, he threatened the. I did. No, it was JD Vance that did it, right? JD Vance threatened him with like the weight of our military.
No, it was somebody under Hegseth. I forget. It's a military position.
Great.
I forget who. I have to look it up exactly who it was. But
It's
yeah,
okay. It's okay.
Yeah, I
threatened
believe we just know it was someone at the Pentagon.
Yeah.
Yeah, they haven't identified who it was specifically, at least in the reporting.
Undersecretary War of Policy Elbridge Colby.
Oh boy. Should we start calling it the Pentacle instead of the Pentagon? I'm just saying, like, you know what I mean? Like when you're coming from a building, shaped like, you know, one particular star shape, you just like the good and evil. I mean, and I didn't think I'd catch myself defending the Vatican because not a fan. Vatican still has the lowest. And you would think Trump actually. No, you would think this is evil. I'm gonna do it anyways. It's the end of the show. You would think Trump would like the Vatican more because they have the lowest age of consent in the world at 13. I believe it's 13.
Oh, too soon.
Yeah, I'm just saying. You would think that he would be more on board, but everyone plays their hand.
But yeah, the Pope had the total temerity to actually be anti-war and against what is happening. He didn't really call out Trump by name or anything like that, but he is an American Pope, and so our country's pissed at him for voicing anti-war views, which generally
that's what the Pope does.
Exactly.
What was he thinking? And he's also apparently he's going to an island between off Tanzania, but in the Mediterranean, right? To where there's a lot of
Terry was telling me that earlier. I can't remember where he, instead of coming to the 250th anniversary of the United States.
Yeah.
On Independence Day.
Is it the 250th anniversary or is it the funeral? I'm not sure at this point. I'm just checking in asking for a country.
Well, depends on if they have that UFC on the lawn or not. The White House. I guess it could be, the first anniversary of Idiocracy, or.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think we're we're just past the first anniversary. Actually, I think is how it works.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't even with this anymore. I can't even. That's how you know I'm from Los Angeles. I'm like, I can't even. Okay, folks, that's it. It's been a big day. We talked about a lot of things. Trump is a basket case. I'm not sure I'm allowed to say that way, but it's Thursday. We'll be back on Tuesday. We're going to keep looking at this BA32 thing, but I'm really looking at MB181, which, by the way, MB181 and XFG are so close to each other that it should just be whichever vaccine performs the best against both variants is the one we should go with. If MB181 performs well against everything, great. And if XFG, I would be more akin to supporting XFG just because it'll help with persistence more, because a lot of people just had XFG infections. So it's more likely to be aligned. Just one thing we see is that the further people get away from the variant of infection, the less helpful things that boost your immune system are. So the closer we can get to that faster, the less pieces we have to pick up down the road. So it's just something to think about. By the way, my little commentary on the DNC, not defending the DNC. I think the biggest problem, and I want to say one last thing on this, it's a fluid body, not a static body. It changes all the time. And if people want it changed, they should step up and make it change, which you can do. I have personally made it change, and those changes stop.
Sounds like we're having some technical issues.
I don't.
No, I don't think so. Maybe. Anyways, I'm done. So we're done. Let's get out of here. So you're breaking up, Don.